This platform is tackling one of the hardest problems in enterprise SaaS, turning massive piles of supply chain data into clean, fast business decisions. But their homepage was buried in AI talk and missing the simple messaging wedge that actually makes people buy, quantifying ROI. In this Query Jam, we uncovered how to turn that buried value into a sharper hook, how to show billion-dollar proof without drowning in tech jargon, and how to make every scroll pull a demo. Let's get into it.
My name is Steven Neeson. I'm the co-founder and head of go-to-market here at ProfitOps. At ProfitOps, we're out to change the dynamic between data and decision-making for business leaders in the supply chain and looking at ways to proactively solve problems and readjust the dynamic of reactive reactions.
How did you come up with the idea for ProfitOps?
Me and my co-founder, Shravan came from supply chain. I came from the startup world. We saw endless toil and frustration when it came to goals that were set from leadership. We also saw the impact of fragmented data across our organizations and understood the power of unlocking the centralization of the data that every organization or every enterprise was trying to attain, and unlocking deeper insights and value and opportunities within that data so that these goals are not only ambitious, but attainable, and you have the right tools in place to do so.
And who is kind of your core customer? Like, is it a buying champion who makes a decision for everyone, or is it kind of a buying committee? And also, like, what, job title or department is kind of, are you interacting with most?
Our conversations start with the chief supply chain officer. Once there's a clear problem identified in those conversations, we get moved over to the leader in whatever department the big gaps are, be it in forecasting, in manufacturing, and fulfilling, or in procurement and sourcing. Now, once we get to that level, we can identify gaps that we can fill, but quickly we need to be engaged with the data science teams because those folks are essentially the internal vendor of these solutions. Their job is to disseminate information out of this vast array of data. And so we have to work with both the data science teams, data engineering, data analytics teams, as well as these business leaders to make them both successful in meeting the business's objectives.
And what is kind of the mindset behind the people who are looking at ProfitOps? What is kind of that core problem that they came to you, that they came for your software to solve? And or what were they doing before that?
If you think about the typical experience of supply chain as one piece, but really any business leader, they're looking at an array of dashboards. They've got maybe dozens of just one particular vendor and dozens of another, and they're all giving the resting heartbeat of that wing of the business. So they're quickly able to see if they're on track or if there's issues that need to be addressed. Now, once an issue is identified, that process of having to delineate what's the root cause of this problem, what are my paths to remediate, and what's the actual downstream and upstream impacts of this are always unknown. And business leaders not knowing how to query or how to build data sets or data tables rely on a vast array of folks with specialties within data to be able to surface up, again, these root causes and these solutions. And you're dealing with the limitations of humans. There's only so much time that they have to be able to look at opportunities and simulate outcomes. And so what we're doing is enabling them to simply define their objective, whatever that is based on the department. Our platform is able to ingest structured and unstructured data, both internal and external. And then we apply a knowledge graph as well as a causal graph to understand the cause and effect relationships. And then based on that objective, we're proactively surfacing problems and solutions to provide opportunities to improve those North Star metrics or OKRs.
What were they using before you?
Before us, it was a team and time. So we're not looking to replace the dashboards that they use. We're not providing anything to give you a resting pulse on your business. But they would use their internal teams or look to the likes of McKinsey or Deloitte or PwC, depending on the problem and depending on the severity of the problem to solve these problems. So we're looking to circumvent all of that time and money spent and be able to provide it proactively, daily, to meet those objectives.
So the first thing I am seeing here is an H1 of meet our AI analyst, enabling supply chain people at all levels to make smarter decisions on objectives such as, and then obviously kind of a rolling drop. Can you kind of walk me through a little bit of what your thought process was when you were first kind of building out this version of your homepage?
The problem we've had in previous versions is we'd run into scenarios that were right up the gut use case for our platform. And we kept getting feedback from people saying, I would have never known that from your website. And given the nature of where our solutions adding value across the end-to-end value chain, it was very hard to figure out exactly how to have something for everybody that we could help. So we decided to reposition both our offering as well as our website into these curated domain-specific analysts. And then in each of these descriptors, being able to define who's going to be the end user of these things, what kind of objectives or a scenario that they could be telling the platform to do, and what would a typical opportunity look like from a day-to-day perspective.
Got it. Can you want to scroll up a little bit more? I like the whole persona approach to it. But the one thing that immediately stands out to me is you were kind of talking about, hey, people are coming to Profit Ops because they have an objective, they have an insane amount of data. There's no way them and their team can like parse out that data, so they need AI to help. I'm not really sure and that's kind of what seems to be your wedge, where it's like, hey, you can get these like, really, really proactive modeling and forecasting and all that sort of, and sourcing all that stuff, if I'm correct, and the assessment, and without having to spend months and months and months on this. I'm not sure if that kind of wedge, which is what I would call a messaging wedge, is really encompassed within that H1. Because you want your H1 and or that sub-description to really explain what is that like final thing they're thinking before they go in and book a demo.
Agreed. This needs a lot of work, so I love all your help you can give, all the feedback you can.
So my next question to you is, when they book a demo and then after the demo and they've gone on to become a customer, what's generally the last thing that they were thinking of, or like that last kind of burning pain point before they decide to pull the trigger?
The burning pain point, I would say, is the quantifying the return on investment. A lot of these gaps that we're solving for are kind of these skeletons in closets that people find difficult to really hash out in terms of the dollars and impacts. The sunshine on the other side is they're all wondering, what use case should we focus on next? Well, we focused on this particular objective and we saw that this platform is able to enable us to exceed it. What's the next objective? Once we've gotten this thing stood up, what's the next objective, or what's the next facility that we can apply this at? So a lot of this kind of final conversations are around quantifying this return on investment, and then what does that look like 3 years down the road? We're focused on this one particular component, let's say in delivery. Oh, what if we move upstream? Or if we're in planning, what if we move downstream? And how do we shape this agreement to where it makes sense for us to try it out and consume it elsewhere in the organization?
So if I were to understand that properly, that's basically boils down to quantifying ROI of kind of the supply of all these kind of supply chain decisions, and then also the demand and inventory forecasting as well.
Quantifying the impact of if we don't, right? So if we leave this problem alone, and if we can resolve it, what does that take off our bottom line?
Got it. In that case, that is your messaging wedge. That's going to be the thing that's going to get people to say yes and become a customer. That, from my own experience across now dozens of these clarity jams, as well as just writing copy for a lot of my clients as well, is the thing that you want to be highlighting in the hero section. That's going to be the thing that's going to get somebody to book a demo. So you want to make sure that is that one piece there. And then you can use the rest of it, which I really like the fact that you have 5 personas already here and kind of explaining the use cases. It's kind of a cool way to do that. And then you can just go ahead and just wow them with all the other things that you can do that they may not even be thinking that they need right now, but you're leading with that wedge of what they're actually thinking. If you want to scroll back up, yeah, that's how you typically want to think about a homepage that converts. You're creating a narrative. So you lead down with that wedge that you kind of talked about, quantifying the ROI of whether or not to even make the decision at all, and also the forecasting piece. Now, the other thing that I would put in here that's super, super small is instead of platform doors, I would literally just change that CTA to book a demo. Same sort of copy, same, color, same text, all of that stuff. The reason behind that is you're creating less of friction or like micro friction between what you want people to do. So I'm assuming you want everyone to book a demo first. You want to make sure that is the primary CTA across the board. Yeah. So scroll down to the next section. I really like the fact that you have those 5 use cases. This is me nitpicking and me not knowing your product, but you might want to think about plan, make, deliver, performance. I really like these cases. I'm not sure if the title for each one of those is doing you as much of a service until you click into it. So like it's not immediately apparent to me what that actually means. So is there a way to better specify the exact individual 5 use cases up top, but the actual copy behind it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, a lot of these end with ing
Yeah.
departments that we shorten, but it is
And
true.
also, I don't necessarily know if AI analyst is doing you any favors. I know it's super, super trendy. I know you, in this case, need to put AI in there, but AI analyst could mean so many different things. And also doesn't really tell you anything. It's the same thing that I say across now a lot of these, where the amount of times I see someone say AI powered or AI assisted, and I'm like, cool, who cares? Most people don't. Just tell them just be more specific about what that analyst is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Scroll down. Okay, so why you need an analyst. So I'm assuming this is kind of your laying out the problems. Is that accurate?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I love it. Like you're doing something that I think a lot of websites should be doing a lot better. I do a much better job of, which is actually spelling out the problem and actually using your homepage to tell a story. So like obviously you want the wedge to convert them right up to the bat, but if they're not quite ready yet and they're still in skimming mode, you want to have a section near the top where it's literally, hey, here's kind of the problem that we're solving. Here's why, and it's really kind of agitating that in the same way that you kind of see with like classic copywriting frameworks like task, problem, agitate, solution, same sort of feel here. One thing you might want to do in between this problem section and kind of the use cases right above it is adding in some sort of social proof. That is one thing that I'm just immediately picking up on is there is none. Do you have any kind of testimonials, logos, case studies that you can potentially pull from there?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And you're thinking wedge that between the problem and suite?
Yeah, or even put that into your hero section. So like if you can say, hey, we've worked with X number of customers or name drop a couple of them or adding in one flagship testimonial quote or a flagship case study or doing the rule of 3 where you have 3 of them over there can go a very long way to get in their face. Hey, Profit Ops is actually working with companies just like yours and we're not some like fly by night startup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So with that in mind, walk me through a little bit more about kind of what you're thinking about with how you laid out the problem, why it hasn't been solved yet, how AI analysts help that. So walk me through a little bit of how you kind of thought about that.
It loops back to that core purpose of our company. And it plagues everywhere in the value chain, but also everywhere in business in general. You've got your static tool that's showing you that resting heartbeat. And these tools are great, but they're isolated and they're not able to look at the upstream and downstream impacts. And so that's the big, I think, selling point for when we're talking with clients is the fact that we're able to aggregate all of this data, be able to continuously look at what if scenarios to find optimal pathways to meet those objectives. And delivering really a dynamic experience with your analyst working 24/7 versus that reactive nature that business has been stuck in.
I like it. My critique here is I think this actually works really well. However, maybe change up the design a little bit of it so that it's a little bit more focused on just the problem piece in this black. You have another black for why it hasn't been solved, how AI must solve it, and then with Profit Ops being kind of the solution that you kind of put into another section could just be a way to make it so that it's a bit more focused and easier to consume. Scroll down. So I'm kind of seeing, are these as additional use cases that you're kind of wanting to highlight? Or walk me through a little bit about what you were thinking here.
These are use cases that we see popping up the most from a business leader perspective. And then the analytics side, this is where we're adding value for your data teams. This is the kind of the 2 sides of the platform.
So I wonder if you can, I am a big believer in, particularly in my experience, what works really well across kind of the clients I work with is being a little bit more specific. So is there something more specific you can say than explore capabilities? Is there a way that with each one of these things, do you actually need all of them to begin with? And if not, get rid of some of these. But for the ones that are absolutely like core value props, can you showcase a screenshot or can you give some additional examples so it doesn't just read like demand forecasting and external signals, which could be, oh, is this software? Is this a consultant? What actually is this? It feels a little bit vague right now.
Mm-hmm.
Scroll down. Okay, so cool. Now the next thing I would say is, again, like typically what you might want to consider is adding some additional social proof right below that. So like you got a little bit more specific about each one of these value props that you're highlighting. Do you have a testimonial that's kind of spelling out, some of those kind of main ones over here so that, before they kind of see the final section, they're kind of being reinforced with, okay, social proof of like what's actually working.
Yeah, I think we could definitely add some key impacts that we've made across industries. Maybe
What are
somewhere
some of those
here.
impacts?
Things like reducing $1 billion in inventory down to 175 million. Things like reducing wastage from a manufacturing facility by 30%, reducing upwards of 200 million in operational overhead within the warehouses, a bunch of big numbers.
Yeah, those are incredible stats. But when I see your homepage, I see none of them. And it just kind of looks like, okay, is this a consultancy? Is this a software product? You know, is this some sort of analyst thing? I would kind of lead with all those things that you said over there, whether that's the testimonials and just reinforce within your positioning and messaging so that you look really, really specific. And also this makes you way more credible. And then you can lead finally if you're ready to transform, makes sense. Book a demo. I like it. No notes there. Anything else before we wrap?
That's it. I appreciate all the feedback. And as you know, these websites are a constantly moving object, and all that you said is invaluable for us to continue to refine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on Creator Jams today.
Thank you, Jessica.